There is a place where every clock forgets to tick, and the silence inside is heavier than any sound. The Old Town Library had been abandoned for decades, its windows boarded, its doors warped with rain, ivy climbing its walls. When Anna slipped, through a gap in the planks, the air struck her with the sharp smell of damp paper and rusted metal. Her flashlight swept across shelves of sagging books, their spines swollen and cracked, while the warped floor groaned beneath her boots. She came to sketch the forgotten architecture, but the longer she stood, the more it felt as though she had stepped into something alive. Her beam froze on a grandfather clock in the far corner. Unlike everything else, it gleamed polished, untouched. Impossibly new, its pendulum hung still, its face was blank. Anna reached out, but the glass pulsed under her touch, like something alive pressing back. She recoiled, breath quick. And in the silence, another clock gave a single tick before dying again. She opened her notebook to steady herself with sketches, but the lines curled into words she hadn't written. Do not write your name. Her stomach tightened. She dropped the pencil and her boot kicked another book from the floor. It lay open, filled with names. Each had been crossed out violently, the ink trembling. At the bottom, the final entry was incomplete. Anne, heart pounding. She tried to leave, but the aisle stretched endlessly, bending wrong. Her flashlight flickered, and the shelves had changed, no longer books, but thousands of clocks, pocket watches, wristwatches, cuckoo clocks, all cracked, all missing their hands. A discordant chorus of ticks rose from them, a fractured rhythm, whispering in her ears. Her notebook slipped from her hand, and when she picked it up, the pages were filled with a single phrase written in her own hand. The library will remember you. Panic drove her toward a faint light ahead. It led her into a reading room. A single oil lamp burned on a table beside a leather-bound diary. She opened it. Entries dated back decades. A journalist in 1972, a child in 1985, a vagrant in 1994. Each described the same discovery. Each ended with the same words. The clocks refused their name. On the final page, no ink, only the faint impression of letters pressed too lightly. Tilting the book to the light, her breath froze. It was her name. The ticking swelled, pressing into her skull. Her flashlight went dark, but the lamp grew brighter. The shelves shifted again, and the grandfather clock stood in the room, pendulum. Now swinging, heavy and slow, with every thud, Anna's memories frayed. Her apartment blurred, her research dissolved. Her family's faces unraveled until only the sound remained. She clutched her notebook, trying to write her name, but the letters slipped away. She no longer remembered how to spell it. The pendulum slowed. Her hands filled the notebook with frantic lines she couldn't stop, words spilling from her as though someone else controlled her. The final swing came, then silence. The clock's blank face no longer looked empty. Her name was etched into it where the hand should have been. The lamp died, and darkness consumed the room. By morning, the library stood as it always had, silent, forgotten. But on the reading table lay a notebook, its pages filled from end to end with one name written in desperate repetition. Oh no, the hand that wrote it was gone. The clocks had fallen silent, but the library had remembered. Her, as it always would. There is a house on the edge of the valley where the walls are said to breathe. Most people dismiss it as nonsense, another superstition. But when Daniel stepped through its door, he felt the air pulse against his skin, as if the house itself had drawn a deep breath in his presence. The place had been abandoned for 40 years, yet the dust did not settle like normal. It hung in the air like pollen, drifting, rising, and falling, as though stirred by an unseen rhythm. Daniel was not an adventurer or historian. He was simply lost. A storm had swallowed the mountain road, rain hammering his windshield, thunder rolling over the valley. His car had given up in the mud, and in the desperate search for shelter, he found the house. Its door was already half open, as if waiting for him. He stepped inside, shaking the water from his coat, and was struck by the silence. No drip of rain, no howl of wind, just the low, steady sound of air moving, the subtle expansion and contraction of the walls. Like lungs too large to belong to any living thing, he set his flashlight on a cracked wooden table, its beam stretching across wallpaper that peeled like shedding skin. The floor sagged, but the wood was warm beneath his boots, warmer than it should have been. He tried to laugh at himself. It's just heat trapped in the walls. But the warmth seemed to follow him, a heartbeat pulsing under the planks. As he explored, he noticed the furniture wasn't scattered or rotted like in other abandoned homes. Chairs faced inward, surrounding empty spaces as though their owners had left mid-conversation. A tea set remained on a low table, porcelain cups filled with nothing but dust, yet arranged neatly, as if waiting. Himself, it was only coincidence, but the unease stayed. In the upstairs hall, he stopped. The wallpaper rippled. Not like fabric caught in a draft. There was no breeze here, but like the slow rise of skin. His throat tightened. He touched the wall with trembling fingers. It pushed back, soft, warm, beating, almost. He stumbled away. Heart hammering, Daniel wanted to leave, but the storm outside roared louder now, drowning the valley in sheets of black rain. He told himself he'd wait until it passed, just a few hours, just until dawn. In a bedroom, he found a journal on the nightstand, leather cracked, pages curling. He flipped through, hoping for distraction. The handwriting was uneven, frantic. Each entry described the same realization. The house is not empty. It does not shelter. MIT is watching me. The words grew worse, more desperate. Do not sleep in its rooms. Do not sit in its chairs. It remembers the weight of every body it has held. The final page was scribbled so violently the pen tore through the paper. I can feel it breathing with me. Soon I won't know which breath is mine. Daniel closed the book with shaking hands. The walls seemed closer now, as though leaning in to hear him. A steady rise and fall of air pressed against his ears. He tried to steady himself, whispering that it was only the storm, only the house settling, only his nerves. When he turned to the mirror above the dresser, he froze. In the reflection, the walls didn't ripple. They swelled. The room inhaled, and his chest rose with it, not by his will, but in perfect unison. He tried to exhale, but his body refused. Panic clawed at his throat. Only when the room let out its breath did he collapse, gasping, free for a moment. He grabbed his flashlight and stumbled down the stairs, desperate to leave. But the front door was gone. In its place, a smooth wall stretched across, pulsing faintly with every breath. His beam shook across the room. Windows were gone too, sealed over, papered like scars. The house had no exits anymore. The walls closed. And slowly, the rhythm tightening. His flashlight flickered and went dark. In the blackness, he could hear it clearly now. A heartbeat. Meow. Not his. Not human. It echoed through the floor, through the ceiling, surrounding him, sinking with his chest until he could no longer tell if his heart was still his own. Daniel clawed through the dark, his hands finding a door he hadn't seen before. He stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind him, and collapsed against it. The room was small, windowless, a single chair waiting in the center. The air was warmer here, suffocating. On the far wall, words were carved deep into the wood. Do not sit. His legs trembled. He told himself he wouldn't. He couldn't. But the longer he stood, the more the house pressed in, the more his chest ached to match its rhythm. His knees buckled, and before he realized it, he was lowering himself into the chair. The wood groaned softly, as if sighing in relief. The room exhaled. His lungs emptied with it. Dot. The room inhaled. His chest filled. He tried to scream, but no. Sound came, only the steady rhythm of breath, not his own. The house had him now, remembering his weight, his breath, his heartbeat. By morning, the storm cleared over the valley. Travelers passing by saw nothing unusual, just an old abandoned house standing silent against the hills. Inside, the furniture was still neatly arranged, and in the upstairs hall, the wallpaper rippled gently. In the small sealed room, too, chairs now faced each other. One had always been there, the other was new. In the house, satisfied, kept breathing. Asterisk, they say, the old train station on the outskirts of the city has been closed for half a century. Yet at night the platforms glow as though trains still arrive. No records remain of its schedule, no maps list its name, but people whisper about. Voices echoing across the tracks, voices calling for passengers who never left. Elias, photographer chasing forgotten places, found himself drawn there one overcast evening. The gates were rusted, chained long ago, but a section of fence sagged low enough to crawl beneath. He stepped onto the cracked pavement of the platform, boots crunching on gravel. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of oil and smoke, though. No engines had run here for decades. The canopy above the platform groaned in the wind. Old benches sat in neat rows, their paint blistered, their metal bones eaten by rust. Elias raised his camera and snapped a photo. The click echoed too loudly, as though the station itself listened. From the far end of the platform, he heard a voice, faint, a man calling, "Tickets, please." Elias froze. He knew he was alone. The sound came again, drifting across the tracks. A conductor's call, clear and practiced, yet without source. His hand tightened on the camera. He told himself it was only the wind, only his imagination. He followed the sound anyway, past the benches and broken lamps, until he reached the waiting hall. The doors were splintered, glass long gone, yet the hall inside glowed faintly. He stepped in. Dust filled the air like fog, but in its swirl he saw shapes at lines of people seated with luggage. Blurred figures turning pages of newspapers, shadows flickering across the cracked tiles. The longer he stared, the clearer they became. Commuters, families, soldiers with duffel bags. None of them real, yet none of them fading. They were trapped in an endless moment, always waiting for a train that never arrived. Elias lifted his camera again and clicked. The flash cut the room in stark white, and in that instant all the figures turned their heads toward him. His breath caught. When the light died, they were gone, leaving only the echo of shifting feet and whispers across the tiles. He backed away, heart racing, but his foot struck something on the floor. A suitcase. Real, worn leather, brass latches, tarnished with age. He knelt, hesitated, then opened it. Inside lay a bundle of yellowed tickets, each stamped with dates, each bearing a single word in faded ink, departed. He shuffled through them quickly, but one slipped free and landed in his hand. This one was different. No date, no stamp, it's only a name, written carefully in black ink. His name, Elias. The air grew colder. The hall darkened, though no clouds crossed. The sky outside shoved the suitcase shut and stumbled back to the platform, desperate for air. But the platform was no longer empty. A train stood there, enormous, silent. Its windows glowed dimly, though the cars looked corroded, eaten by rust. Steam hissed from nowhere. The doors were open, light spilling onto the cracked platform. He raised his camera, snapped, and nearly dropped it because, in the frame, the train was new, polished steel gleaming. Crowds bustling to board. But when he lowered the camera, the train stood corroded, still waiting. From inside, the conductor's voice rang again. All aboard. Elias turned to run, but the tracks stretched impossibly long, station shifting, endless in every direction. The open doors seemed to pull at him as though the platform tilted toward them. His chest tightened with panic. He looked at his camera screen, hoping for grounding. But every photograph now showed him not the station, not the train, just him, seated by a window inside, staring back with hollow eyes. He dropped the camera. The sound echoed like thunder. Staggered to the benches, forcing himself to sit, to breathe. The air was thick with the smell of coal and iron now. As the whispers swelled, families calling children, soldiers adjusting coats, everyone unseen, yet everyone present. And beneath it all, one truth sank into him. This was not a station abandoned. It was a station waiting. The ground trembled. The train's lights flared brighter. The whistle howled once low, mournful, eternal. The figures returned around him, more solid now, luggage in hand, boarding quietly. None looked at him, acknowledged his panic. They moved as though rehearsed, as though they had always been boarding, forever. Elias clutched the nameless ticket in his fist. His name glared up at him in black ink. His throat was dry, heart racing, yet when the conductor's shadow passed before him, he felt his body rise against his will, feet moving, breath shallow, step by step toward the open door. Inside, the carriage smelled of dust and smoke. Passengers sat in silence, eyes fixed ahead, hands folded over tickets they clutched, like lifelines. Elias tried to back out, but the door slid shut behind him. His pulse roared in his ears. He sat because there was nowhere else to go. The bench beneath him groaned with age, yet felt disturbingly familiar, as if it had remembered him. The train shuddered. The platform outside blurred. With a lurch, it began to move, pulling away from the station, wheels screaming against rusted tracks. He pressed his face to the window. The station stretched into the distance, endless, fading into fog. He saw his camera on the platform, abandoned, its lens cracked. Then, as the fog consumed all view, he realized something worse. The passengers weren't strangers anymore. Faces shifted, sharpened, until he recognized them, his grandparents, long dead. A teacher from childhood. Friends he hadn't thought of in years. It's all gone from his life. Yet here, seated, watching him silently. One by one, they turned their tickets toward him. Each bore the same word, departed. Elias looked down at his own. The ink bled across the paper until the letters swam, forming a single word he couldn't deny. Arrived, the train plunged into darkness. The whistle echoed endless. The station, still waiting, stood silent for the next passenger.